You're now listening to the legendary Vinyl Esquire.
Vinyl Esquire. Culture, truth, music. At Vinyl Esquire. www.vinylesquire.com.
You're now listening to Vinyl Esquire. Culture, truth, music. Check out www.vinylesquire.com, at Vinyl Esquire, on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Would you join me, please, in welcoming DJ Rip?
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, and my name is DJ Rip. And Vinyl Esquire is the DJ podcast that uplifts the DJ culture and honors our legends. So without further ado, I would like to welcome to Vinyl Esquire the legendary DJ, producer, arranger, songwriter, executive, the founder of Untouchables Entertainment Group, Mount Vernon's own, money-earning Mount Vernon's own. I want to welcome to Vinyl Esquire the legendary DJEDDIEF.
Yo. What's up, man? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you like that intro? What you think?
Oh, man. I was like, who is he talking about?
Well, I'm talking to the gentleman that's on the phone with me right now, man. And let's go ahead and get right to it. I want to peel back some layers. I want to get into your history, and let's get right to it, okay?
Okay.
I want to get right to the beginning. Who or what made you want to be a DJ?
Man, so a lot of people don't really know this because Mount Vernon is like a suburb of, the city. But Mount Vernon is right next to the Bronx, where hip hop started. Meaning, like, literally two sides of Mount Vernon is the Bronx.
Okay.
So when hip hop started, there was this park up the street from my house where I grew up. It's called Brush Park. And, I was probably, I don't know exactly how old I was, but I know I was younger than 10 years old. Every once in a while, I would hear music. They would throw, like, block parties at this park, Brush Park. And, you just hear the music. And I would just, go up there. I just go outside and go up there. You see a bunch of people, see all the speakers and all the, big stacks of speakers and people. And in the middle of that would be somebody would be, DJing, and somebody would be on the mic. And that was my first kind of, like, encounter with hip hop. What I didn't know at the time, I didn't find this out until years later. We probably, I guess, get into this later on. But what I didn't know at the time, one of the crews from Mount Vernon that at the time was doing the events up there, rocking up there, was this group called the Collins Brothers. But what I didn't know at the time was the Collins Brothers, one of the Collins Brothers' half-brother is Red Alert's half-brother. So I was too young to know what was going on. But at the time, some of the time when I was going up there, it was the Collins Brothers, along with Red Alert, Jazzy J, Bambaataa. They would all be in that park. And so that was the bug that bit me. I didn't know who was who, but I heard the music, and I loved the music.
So what year would you say this was?
Late 70s. I'm not sure the exact year, but definitely the late 70s.
Got you. So what year did you start DJing?
I started DJing for real at 13 years old. 13 years old. That's when my mom bought me DJ equipment. She bought me the 2 turntables, mixer, and the speakers. I had been playing around before that. I had been listening to the radio, making tapes, listening to Mr. Magic, listening to, at the time there was a station in New York. First of all, there was WBLS with Frankie Crocker. So that goes without saying.
Right.
The legend. But there was also a station called 92 WKTU, and they used to do these things called master mixes. So this is back when, Genius of Love was out, and they would do these extended mixes. It'd be like 10-minute mixes. I would tape all that stuff off the radio. That was before I was 13. That's probably somewhere between 10, 11, 12. I was recording that stuff. I had one record, I remember I had got some money for something. I don't know if it was an allowance or I had done something. I had got some kind of way. I had got $5. I remember taking that $5. I walked all the way across town. At that time, it was probably a 30 or 45-minute walk one way. I walked all the way to the record store to buy one copy of, it it was a break beat. It had bongo rock on one side, it had Apache on the other side. And I remember buying that and, trying to scratch on my, my mother's, dad's, like, phonograph player.
Right.
But that wasn't, I wasn't a DJ. I was trying to, I was just trying to emulate, what I saw. I didn't have DJ equipment. But so I would say I was starting to try and figure out scratching, and I did have one break beat somewhere between 10 and 13. But 13 is when I got like real DJ equipment, an actual mixer, 2 turntables, and all that stuff.
Wow. So the first record that you bought yourself was the incredible bongo band Apache and Bongo Rock.
Yes, that's the first record. The second record I bought was Genius of Love. that I bought. Now, this is the thing. My dad had records. So I had Good Time. I had a bunch of 45. I had Diana Ross, Rick James. I had all those hits from that era. Love Is the Message.
Right.
Because he had them.
Right,
so
right.
I had those. I didn't have them. I didn't own them. I didn't have them anywhere where they were in my ownership. They were his records, but I would, play them. But we didn't have, at that point, Bongo Rock was, besides Good Times, Bongo Rock was probably the next most super official, breakbeat. And that's probably why I bought it, because I was like, we got a lot of disco stuff. We got all the, those things. But this is nowhere in the house.
Right. Got you. So right now are we still late 70s, early 80s at this point?
Oh, yeah, definitely late 70s, early 80s.
So I want to talk just a little bit about Mount Vernon. It has the title Money Earning Mount Vernon. And we all know about Mount Vernon through the music and the artists that came through there. But you were on the forefront of all of these artists, and we'll get to the artists later who you're responsible for. But just talk to me just a little bit about those early days in Mount Vernon, the start of the hip-hop scene as you were a part of in Mount Vernon.
So, all right, so there's a lot of people that came before me. Just like if you listen to probably anybody that really talks about the real beginnings of hip-hop culture, there was the people that made the records, but there's like a whole generation before that of people that didn't get to make records. And the same thing as Mount Vernon. Okay. I mean, I put it to you like this, man. My dad was, master's degree, history, high school guidance counselor. My mom, educator. She's, now, 35 years in, veteran at the time. My parents were teachers and educators. So I was from the South. I was a teacher's kid, humanities kid, but also I was in the middle of this hip-hop thing. And I'm saying that to say, at that time, like I knew like all the like quote unquote the cool kids, but I wasn't really down with the cool kids like that. Mm-hmm. I was straddling the fence, and it's kind of, to be honest, I'm probably still in that position now, where I straddle the fence between the kind of like the humanities kids and then the music kids.
So you're like a cool nerd. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've actually been called that before. Okay. And not in a disrespectful way. I've been called that. So I'm saying that to say there were multiple crews in Mount Vernon. And the reason why I'm saying that, because I don't want to take credit. Like I didn't start hip hop in Mount Vernon or any of that. There's literally, big brothers. Me being in elementary school, there's guys that were in, high school that were really putting it down.
Right.
And it was official. You know what I mean? You had crews. You had the Collins brothers. You had the Eddie Robb and the Mob. You had DJ Blade. There were a bunch of crews from Mount Vernon. Just so happens the Collins brothers was, I guess I would say, they were the pivotal one. They're the link because they were the link between Bam, Jay, and Red. because of Red's half brother being in the College Brothers. So everything that Bambaataa, Red, and them were doing, the College Brothers were doing, it was like they was linked with family. So they were, they were supporting them. They were coming to the Vernon, and then you got the Bronx is right there. So you got you got Edenmore Projects, you got Dyer Avenue. So DST came up. He's from Edenmore Projects. That's literally like I could walk there from my, I could walk there in 15 minutes from where I grew up. So you had all this influence of hip hop and hip hop culture. So I was a student,
Gotcha.
I was like the little brother to the big brothers. And I mean, and it was everything. It wasn't just the music. It was the whole crew situation. It was everything. It was the music. It was the dancing, the partying. It was the b-boy. It was the fighting. The crews. And I wasn't in the beginning. I wasn't a part of any of that, but I watched it and I knew it and I studied it and I knew. Anybody from New York, if you were around hip hop, you knew, you could feel when it was dangerous, when it was about to go down. I tell people that didn't really come up in hip hop and don't really, don't have any connection in New York. I'm like, there was a time where, and I remember this, I grew up through this. There was a time where parties didn't end, no parties ended, just ended. Every party ended, it was a fight or a shootout. That's how the party ended. There was a period of time in the early 80s where that's just how it was.
Right.
And there was no, people were policing themselves. There was no police at the party. It was like, you would see on the flyer, like, such and such, heavy security. And it would be like, and part of your crew would be the security. One,
right.
Whoever nobody acted up.
Whoever threw the party,
two,
right?
Right. Make sure nobody acted up, and also to make sure nobody tried to steal equipment and all of that, And
sounds like New York. Go ahead.
Yes. Yes. So I grew up through all of that. So, I had teachers and people that I give props to, in the whole, going through the whole, the sheepskins, the leather bombers,
absolutely,
the shell-toe Adidas, the fat laces, the just everything, the snorkels with the, with the fur on the hood, just the whole,
right.
The color leaves, just British Walkers, just, the Clarks, like Quarterfields, like all the parts of hip hop that the early stuff. I grew up through all of that. And we had stores. That's one thing we did. We had a strip, it's still actually there. There's a strip in Mount Vernon, 4th Avenue. And we had stores that had the same type of clothes that you could get in the city. Also, there was a spot on Southern Boulevard in the Bronx called Jew-Man. You get on the train, you go down there, and they had all the, whatever the hottest clothes was, the leather turtles. And it was funny because you would go down there. It was the make a deal spot too. It was like nothing was the cost what it was. You'd be like, yo, how much for the gray leather turtles, size 10? They might be, I don't know, making some $45. You're like, yo, I got 37. I get them for 37. Like the whole situation it was no pay sticker price tax. The whole thing was trying to make a deal. You're trying to bargain.
It's just the life. It's just the life. It sounds like early New York, no question.
Exactly.
Was DJEDDIEF your first DJ name?
No. What was my first DJ name? I have to think about that. Man, I went through a couple of DJ names, but it didn't become EDDIEF until, to be honest, my name didn't become EDDIEF until we were about to get a deal, Heavy D and the Boyz. And when I started DJing in like after I left high school. I was Goldfingers, I was DJEs, and, so I was EDDIEF. First let me say this, I was EDDIEF, but then I started DJing with actually one of the guys from one of the crews. He was doing shows, and through a mutual friend, he was like, yo, you should get my man, to DJ for you. And he didn't think EDDIEF was like, EDDIEF, that sound it didn't sound like right to him. So my name became DJEs.
So EDDIEF wasn't cool enough because you're the cool nerd, right? So, but EDDIEF, that wasn't cool enough to him?
it wasn't cool enough to him, and so we changed it to DJEs, because I guess everybody back then, nobody really went by their regular name. That was my like regular name. This is when we back in Ron Ski, those type of names.
Right, understood. Absolutely.
You couldn't take really one of the grands, because the grands was like Grandmaster Flash, Grand Mixer DST, Grand Wizard Theodore. So you really couldn't be like if you was going to be claiming the grand, you was going to have to be, you were really going to have to be on the top of something.
So you became DJEDDIEF later when you said, Heavy D and the Boys. So let's talk about that. How did you get with Heavy D, and how did that Mount Vernon scene for you start with Heavy D and the Boys? And talk to me about that whole beginning, and how did that come about?
So there was a time period where right after I graduated from high school. Well, okay, this is the thing. I early on, I skipped a grade. I skipped a grade early on. So I was always a grade ahead since elementary school. So and the reason why that's significant is because I was always the same age as the class behind me. So when I graduated high school, I did this one house party with a friend of mine, and it blew up. And then everybody just started calling me, wanting me to do parties. And then one thing led to another, and I basically end up pretty much like taking over like the whole Westchester. Like our crew became the go-to crew. Like we just did all the parties.
And this would be what, are we now in the, 83, 84, 85 time frame?
This is 85 to 86.
Okay, gotcha.
I graduated in 85. So basically I became like, if you want a hot party, you go call EDDIEF. Like sometimes we would have 2 parties the same night, even 3 sometimes. 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the evening. We would have to go send somebody to start the party and just play records on one turntable until we finish the party, and then run up there with the equipment. We had a couple of situations like that. That's how hot we were at the time. So a mutual friend, and Mount Vernon is, first of all, small. I didn't hang out with him every day. I didn't know him like that, but I knew who he was. I knew him because Mount Vernon, everybody knew everybody. It was actually Trouble T. Roy, that I knew. He knew Hev. And I was actually doing a party. I think I was doing I was in Mount Vernon Boys Club. I was setting up for a wedding reception or something like that. And I remember Troy came in the side door as I was setting up. This was like in the afternoon, way before the party. And he like, man, I want to introduce you to, man, Hev. And, he's trying to make a record. And I was like, yeah, what's up? And then he basically connected us. And he told me he was making a demo, he was trying to make a record, and, he wanted to see if I'd be interested in, like, working with him. And then me and Hev connected, and then we just we hit it off, and then we just started, like, hanging out, like, every day. Like, he was at my place, I was at his place, and that's how I met Hev. Like, Troy is really the one that, brought us together.
Rest in peace, Trouble T. Roy, and rest in peace, Heavy D. So what got you into production and songwriting? You're a top DJ in Mount Vernon right now at this point. What got you into production, and how did that initially transcend into Heavy D and the Boys?
Well, there's a couple of parts to that. The first part is, I was listening to the records, playing all the records, and I knew all the records. And, this was around the time Dougie Fresh, the show, had come out. And it was obviously, that was like a monster hit. Like,
right.
And it was using the swing beat. It was different. It wasn't, most records or artists at that time were using the straight beat. For people that know music, is, difference between a 16th note and a 16th note triplet or a 32nd note where you can actually swing the beat. But a lot of records weren't made with swing beats. And I took, as a DJ, it was just something that was intriguing to me. And I kind of wanted to make my own beats. And so I had a friend who had, keyboards and drums. He had the Oberheim, and he would have the DMX. And he actually let me borrow his drum machine. It was the Roland 909. He let me borrow it. And I actually stayed up all night and learned how to program it. And I made a swing beat. And then we made a demo based on that swing beat.
So what was the demo? What was the songs on the demo?
The demo was actually a song called Goldfinger. It was a DJ demo. And it's the demo that we took down to Rush Management that got Andre Harrell interested in us.
Got you. So what particular song was on the demo that made them, want to sign you, and did you use that? Did any of those songs become an official release?
No. The name of the song was Goldfingers. It was a DJ song. I was DJing, and Head was basically rapping about me, and I was using, it's funny, I was using Stupid Fresh, and just the Fab Five Freddy, just the normal scratch. Basically, this is the funny thing. Half of the stuff that Jeff ended up using in the Magnificent was stuff that I was using in the demo. Like those same, not the same scratches, but the same sound.
Right, got you. The Mardi Gras, the same samples.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I got you.
Yeah. So that, it didn't end up on our demo or anything. But one of the demos I did after that did, which was Mr. Big Stuff.
Got you. So you produced Mr. Big Stuff. What did you use to produce that record?
The Stretch DX.
The DX, not the DMX,
Yep.
the DX.
Not the DMX, the Stretch DX. Because the difference, the thing that, not only was the DX cheaper, but when you stretch the DX, you could change the sounds. I'm not sure, but I don't think it was really a thing like that to change the sounds on the DMX. Also, the DX had the shaker. It had the shaker. So I'm not sure. I would have to go look at a DMX, but I want to say I wanted to get the DX because I knew that was the Dougie Fresh machine.
Right.
You go to the music store, like, this is the sounds, and it was probably just me in my own little world besides whoever worked on the show, because back then, you didn't have internet, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have, nobody said, this is what we use. It's just, as a DJ, you hear the record and you go, yo, this is the same sounds from from that song,
Right. So the show, from my understanding, was programmed by Teddy Riley. Okay?
Yes, absolutely. Which is ironic.
Right. So
then I ended up meeting him. I didn't know he did the song. So this is just like some parallel universe, type shit.
Right, because you had mentioned to me that you had said that Teddy Riley and Marley Marl were your mentors. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, got you. So now, really quickly, talk to me about, taking the demo down to, you said Rush Communications, which was Russell Simmons' management company. You took the demo down there to Andre Harrell, who then you worked with later. So talk to me about how the demo worked and how you ended up getting a deal with Uptown Records, which wasn't even in existence yet, right?
Right. So, again, as a DJ, I used to read the records. So I read all the records, and you could see that of all the top groups at the time, mostly all the top groups, LL, Houdini, Curtis Blow, Run DMC, they were all managed by this one company, Rush Management. The only ones that were big was the Fat Boys.
Right.
And they weren't under that management. Everybody else was under that management. So I'm like, we should go here. So then we actually looked in the phone book to see if we could find the address. And I'm not sure if the address was on the record. Actually, the address was on the record, but the phone number wasn't there. We looked in the phone book, called to try to, talk to Russell Simmons. We didn't know you couldn't call and be like, hey, can we talk to Russell Simmons? So.
Right. Not to mention you and everybody else in New York is doing the same thing right now, trying to send demos to Russell Simmons. Yes, sir. Exactly.
Right. So we did that, and we knew we couldn't get him on the phone. So we end up saying, let's just go down there and let's try and see if we can get a meeting. And that's what we did. We just went down. We got Hev borrowed his mom's car. We asked Gary, who was Troy's big brother, because we didn't know how to get downtown driving. He's like, yo, just go on such and such highway. When you get to this part, just stay to the right to where it says downtown. And we drove downtown, parked the car. I'm not even sure if we had somebody waiting in the car. Nah, we parked the car. We parked the car, and we went up to the office. And it's funny, at the time, it was myself, Neville Hodge, who ended up being one of the Untouchables, I'll Be Sure, who wasn't I'll Be Sure yet, and Heavy D. And Hev and Al were like the spokespeople. They were like, me and Neville were there. We were kind of like just hanging in the back. And they just said, hey, we're here, we want to see if we could, meet Russell Simmons. And we talked to the receptionist, and as we're trying to, see if we can meet with Russell Simmons, a guy comes out of the back and he says, he looks at us, he said, "Where you from?" We were like, "Mount Vernon." And at the time, he probably thought Mount Vernon was like Mount Kisco. It just sounded like it was way far away. He was like, "Y'all came all the way down here from Mount Vernon?" And at the time, we didn't know that was Andre. He was like, "Okay, I'm Andre Harrell, vice president of," he was vice president of Rush.
Right.
And, and that's how we met Andre.
Wow. Got you. Okay. So now talk to me really quickly about getting signed and because Rush Communications was a management company. How did this transcend into a record deal with Uptown Records?
So this is the thing. They were just starting with Def Jam. They had just come out with the singles, Jazzy J. They had Radio had just come out because this is like around the Crush Groove time.
Right, 85, yes. Right.
So we didn't know Andre was starting his label. He said, we end up playing him our demo. And so he's like, all right. He's like, it's not good. He's like, all right. He's like, so who you? He start, if you know Andre's personality, he likes to joke around, make jokes. So he immediately starts. He's like, so who you? He's like, you Prince Monkey D Jr. He said that to Heavy. And then
right.
He was like, he asked me if I'm Junior Rick Rubin, making the beats. And he told us, he gave us something he wanted us to do with the music. He said, go back, do this, do that. And I remember us just running home and making those changes like right away, immediately. And Heavy would call every day. He would call. I remember call Heavy every day. Hey, you speak to him? You speak to Andre? What'd he say? And that was like an everyday process for like, I want to say a month or two.
Wow, okay.
And what we didn't know was at the time, Andre was putting together his own deal. He was putting together his own deal for the Uptown Records compilation. Now, we didn't know that, but that's what was going on in the background.
Gotcha.
He was about to leave Rush and start his own company.
Right, because he put out Uptown's Kicking It, was the first compilation on Uptown Records, right?
Yep. Funny thing, on Uptown's Kicking It, the first two lead singles, which were Uptown's Kicking It and Mr. Big Stuff, I did the tracks for both of those. I did the drum beat for both of those songs, which became both of the singles off the album, the first single.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yep. And I got co-producer credit. I wasn't a producer at the time. I didn't even know what a producer was. I was just making the beats. And how the Uptown's Kicking It thing came up was we were all in the studio, all of the group, and we're recording. And I guess it just came up that we need to make a record, a group song with everybody on it. I had my drum machine. I was like, I got some beats. And I played the beat, and they liked it. I played what became Uptown's Kick. I played that beat. I played that, and they were like, yo, that's hot. Let's use that. And then every group kind of wanted a modification of that beat, to fit them. So I sat with each person and made a modified version of what was the main beat.
Which is why in that record, every time a new artist comes on, the drums or the beat changes to some degree, right?
Right, yes.
What's interesting is I just assumed that Marley Marl produced that record.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people do. If you look on there, you see the producers, Tony and Ulysses St. Keats, and I'm the co-producer.
Wow.
And I did the drum tracks, and I mean, as far as the writers, I wrote half the song. If you look up the song, half of the song was written by me.
So did Andre Harrell just finally decide, okay, I want to sign Heavy D and the Boyz? Is that what your name was? Or, how did it end up happening from the harassment to actually putting out the records and being on the Uptown Records compilation?
So we were just a group on the compilation. And ironically, it's funny you say that. In the beginning, we didn't even have a finalized name. He wanted us to be, he was also a fan of Dougie Fresh, which is why I think he also became a fan of Heavy D. He loved the swing beat. He loved the fact that we were doing the swing beat. He loved the big, fly dancing guy. He wanted us to be, this is funny. In the beginning, he wanted our name to be Heavy D and the Come Off Crew. I think he was trying to make us like Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh Crew. And I remember us to have everybody being, nah, man, that's whack, man, that's whack.
Yeah, that was whack.
It was very whack. And one of our friends who was with us in the studio one of my good friends from high school, Tony Watts. I remember he was like, he's the one who actually came up with the name Heavy D and the Boys. He's like, man, y'all should just be Heavy D and the Boys, like the boys with a Z. And I remember we were like, that's it. And he made that up. We were at a studio session at Sun King Studios in the lobby waiting for our studio session.
Wow.
And that's how we got the name Heavy D and the Boys. And me and Heavy are partners. We were always partners. We're partners in the group. We're partners on the deal, 50-50 artists. Kind of like, Eric B. and Rakim, DJEDDIEF and the Fresh Prince, all of like the groups that were the DJ and the rapper. The reason why it became Heavy D and the Boys, which in retrospect probably a detriment to me because my name's not in the group. I'm like Heavy D and the Boys. I wasn't thinking about it like that at that time. Was because we had seen a lot of my friends, and they had they weren't our friends yet. We had seen a lot of people perform that was a DJ and a rapper, and they would always have these bomb records. But then they show, people would be like, they show what was IO. They was just walking back and forth on stage,
right.
And we were like, we didn't want to be that, and so we made a conscious decision to have dancers, but we don't want them to be just dancers. We're gonna put them in the group, so it's not Heavy DJEDDIEF and their dancers. It's like the actual whole group.
Gotcha.
I think that was something that set us apart from everybody else early on. Because a lot of people had like dancers, but we were one of the few that had like dancers' personalities within the group, on the records, in the photos. You knew their names. It wasn't just like, one of the dancers.
Got you. So with Heavy D and the Boys, you guys put out, the debut album, Living Large. You had singles, Living Large, Mr. Big Stuff, and then you ended up putting out the follow-up album, which is the second album that went platinum, called Big Time, and then later Peaceful Journey. Did you handle majority of the production for all the Heavy D and the Boys projects?
From a supervisory standpoint, yes. I was like the in-house editor, TV track person, everything. No matter who made the record, I always would handle all of that type of stuff. But from a production standpoint, on the first album, I was like a co-producer. I was just learning. Teddy Riley was really the main producer on the first album, and Marley Marl was like the secondary producer. I was really more like a co-producer. It wasn't until Big Time when I really became a quote-unquote full-blown producer, and I did the majority of tracks on Big Time. And it also did Somebody For Me, which was our biggest charting single of our highest charting single rather of our whole career. It was our biggest selling album too.
Right.
1.6 million albums. I did the majority of that album. And then the third album was a little strange. I only did one song on the third album, but that was right after, when Troy passed.
Right.
Things were, So if you look at our albums, you'll see. I tell people, and I never realized this until I look back. You look at our career, you can see the moods of the group through the album covers. And I never really realized this. You'll see first in the beginning, you see Living Large. You see everybody's like, everybody's smiling, everybody's happy. Then you see Big Time, and it's like, okay, we got a little experience, we growing up, we got on suits, and, it's Heavy D and the Boys, we more polished. Then the next album you see is black cover, that's after Troy, that passed, Peaceful Journey.
Right.
Then the next album you see is Blue Funk. It's like, it's not as dark as the black cover of Big Time, but it's still, the mood is still subdued. It's not the fun Heavy D and the Boys. And then not until Nothing But Love is when you see us again kind of in that, okay, it's full circle. It's back to almost where we were with like Big Time. We're like looking, and we're kind of like grown up and matured. But you can see through the album, and I never really realized this till after. It took me 10 years after to look at our album and be like, man, you can see the mood of the group through the album covers. And the pain that the group was going through the album covers.
And the interesting thing about that is that those two albums were my favorites. the first one and the last one.
Wow.
Those are my favorite albums. You know, the first one always gave me that fly, you know, mid-'80s New York, you know, with the hat, the fashion, how you guys dressed, you know, the music, the drums, the style, the Mr. Big stuff. All of that was kind of like that hybrid of what hip hop was going through, you know, drum machines and samples, right?
Right.
There was still drum machines included in with the samples. It wasn't all completely samples yet, right? So the first album and the last album, for me, I liked all of it. And you had classic records, but I think the first album and the last album was my favorites. That's interesting that you give me that dynamic, and you're 100% right. So with that being said, give me one quick story. Me and you talked about it before. One quick story about Andre Harrell, Uptown Records, and a young Puff Daddy.
Well, a couple of steps to that. One, Puff, he was born in Harlem, but he was raised in Mount Vernon. I'm not sure exactly when he moved to Mount Vernon, but when he was a kid, he moved to Mount Vernon. Puff was actually in this crew called the 7-Up Crew. In the 7-Up Crew, Groovy Lou, for those that know Puff and the crew, Groovy Lou was the leader of the 7-Up Crew.
Okay.
Believe it or not, Puff was one of the quiet ones. He was one of and the 7-Up Crew they were a group of guys. They were fashion forward. They had the flat top before everybody. They had the Gumby before. They wore the polka dots before everybody. They were like the fashion forward, the group of guys that would go down to the village, go down to Harlem, come back with the fly, whatever the fly is before everybody else knew what was hot. They also would come to my parties when I was DJing. I would let them in free because they were the party starters. They would get in the circle, do all the dances, do the flips, do the, whatever, jump over the leg, all of that. They would do all of that and kind of be like those dudes in the party. So now to just go back to Puff. Saying that to say I knew Puff before he was even before we even made records or any of that.
Right.
Puff. So fast forward, Hev gets him an internship at Uptown. But Puff ended up actually living at my house with me. He lived with me in my house in Jersey. He was staying in Jersey, and something happened with his apartment. His roof fell in, like there was a storm. His roof fell in. He came to live with me, and he stayed with me pretty much the whole time while he was like coming up. This is before he had worked with Mary, before he worked with Jodeci. This when he was just working with Finesse and Quiz, when he was just an intern learning how to be an A&R. And this is a funny thing. At a point, everybody knows the story about Uptown and Puff got fired. Puff almost got fired probably like 5 times. I was the person that got him stopped from being fired the first 4 times.
Okay.
I was the person Puff would come back, he'd be upset, be mad about something, or him, Andre. I'd talk to Puff, I would calm him down. I would go to Andre. I would say, it got to a point where I would go talk to Andre, and Dre would be like, you talk to your man? You calmed him down? You all right now? It's like, so
wow,
there was a
funny.
time where I was like, I definitely, I was like the mediator almost, and I would stop Puff from getting fired. As a matter of fact, Puff even knows this because he said something to me about it. When Puff finally did get fired, he wasn't living with me anymore at that point. He had went and got his own place and his own stuff. When he finally did get fired, they called me in. They wanted me to take over A&R. They wanted to offer me the job. And I told them, this was them being Andre, and it was Mark Siegel at the time, was GM. They had a meeting with me. And they said, we just fired Puff. We want you to see if you want to come in, be head of A&R. I said, man, I wanted to come in and be VP of A&R along with Puff. I didn't want to replace Puff. And then I told them, I said, if you want me to come in, I said, my first advice, if you want me to come in and do an A&R, you need to rehire Puff back. I said, that's ridiculous. I said, they were telling me all the problems. I said, it doesn't make sense. I said, well, give him his own company then or something. Give him his own office or something away from him. But I said, that's stupid. I said, why? I said, you're going to fire Puff. You might as well drop Mary J. Blige and drop Jodeci. Because I was like,
wow.
You might as well release Guy. I just thought it was a ridiculous move because I felt like Puff had so much talent. He was so much to add, to just fire him. To me, it just was a bad business move.
Right. So much of him were in all of those groups, right?
Yes. And I felt like, in my opinion, I looked at it as, okay, if the situation is getting a little unruly, then deal with it like the same way you would deal with a talented artist. You're not gonna, if Mary J. Blige comes in here upset about something, you're not gonna be like, oh, Mary was mad, she was cursing, we're gonna release her from her deal, or we're gonna get, which would be the equivalent of firing her. I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
And I remember Puff coming to me afterwards and said, yo, I saw Andre. He told me he said you was like, told him, you was telling them they should keep me and they shouldn't fire me. He was like, yo, I'm man, I'm going to just go do my thing, man. I'm going to be all right. This before Bad Boy, before he had the deal. But I know he knew about it back then because I think Andre told him. EDF came and told us we shouldn't fire you.
Right. Aside from a young Diddy, which was Puff Daddy, and Andre Harrell, obviously, that's Uptown Records, and he gave you, obviously you and Heavy D and the Boyz your first record deal. Aside from them, I understand that you're responsible for artists out of Mount Vernon, like Al B. Sure, Pete Rock, and CL Smooth, to name a few. Can you talk to me about Al B. Sure and Pete Rock and CL Smooth?
Well, Al B. Sure was part of our original crew. And I was friends with Al because Al used to sing in the lunchroom. And, he was a light-skinned, curly-haired dude singing. He used to sing Ready for the World. The girls liked him. And we actually connected because I was doing all the parties. I was doing the high school parties. So I kind of just became friends with people because, I was doing all the parties. So I became friends with Al. And then Al was trying to sing. Al had access to a 4-track. The early Tascams with the cassette. He had the 4-track, and then he also knew a guy that played keyboards, which was Neville Hodge. He introduced me to Neville, and so between me, Al, Neville, and Heavy, we would make demos. We were kind of like the crew, like the production crew that would make the records, make the demos. And back then, Al was rapping. Al wasn't even a singer. He could sing, but he used to rap in a style similar to Slick Rick. And
okay,
I'm saying that to say Al was always my homeboy. Al stayed with me for a time period too, because at that point I had kind of set up shop in the basement, had my DJ equipment. I had turned the basement kind of into my own apartment. People would come to see me. They would come through the garage. They didn't come to the front door. So Al actually ended up staying at my place with me for a time period because his mom had either lived or moved to New Rochelle, and he wanted to be more local. So he ended up staying with me for a while. So fast forward, we get our deal. And we get the deal, Heavy D and the Boyz. And Al is still, around. He's still doing demos and trying to make his records. And I'm like, okay, I'm in the door, so I'm going to try and get my man the door. He comes with me to a demo. We're Off on Your Own. And I'm like, yo, this is dope. This sounds good.
Right.
And so, long story short, I played the demo for Andre. Andre said, oh, who's that? I said, it was Al. He said he wanted to meet Al. He knew of Al, but he didn't, at that time, he was dealing with us, so he wasn't really directly doing well. He knew he was part of our crew. He would see him around. So then they did the meeting. Of course, all the women co-signed. Oh, he's good looking. You should, I wasn't there at that meeting, but I heard all the women co-signed. He had the record that sounded good. And then that's basically how the Al B. Sure deal became Al B. Sure. As a matter of fact, Andre still owed me. He still owed me a point, the finder's fee or something. He told me he was going to give me a finder's fee. I never got that point.
Wow.
But so I used to ask about it every once in a while back then in the 90s.
Here we go with the business not getting taken care of, right? Jesus. So in the late 80s, you started your own production company called Untouchables Entertainment Group. Talk to me about the motivation behind starting your own company.
Okay, so in the beginning, it was just called the Untouchables. And so let me tell you to go back. So Pete and Neville, they were, pretty much like junior producers. And what was happening was I was trying to get, like how I got Al put on, I was trying to get them put on with Uptown to be like, quote unquote, staff producers. And
you're talking about a young Pete Rock at this point, right?
Yes, young Pete Rock, young Neville.
Okay,
I was
go ahead.
trying to get them. Uptown was supposed to sign them to producer management. And we were waiting. They would call me every day, the guys, Pete and Neville. They wanted to get signed. And they'd be like, what's going on? So, after maybe a month or two, one day they called me on conference. And they like, yo, why don't you just sign us? And I'm like, man, shoot, I never really thought about it,
Right.
So I was like, all right, cool, let's come up with a name. And then I talked to Pete the next day, and he's like, we should be the Untouchables. I'm like, That's my favorite. I was like, at the time, The Untouchables was my favorite movie anyway. I probably had watched that movie 15 times.
Right.
You know, so I'm like, dope. So I'm like, cool. So that's how The Untouchables was never formed to, I want to build this producer company. I want to do this. I want to make money. It was really formed to just help my friends, like, kind of get on. That's why I did it. I was always, and this comes from anybody that knows anything about old school DJing. When you the DJ back in the days, you had to take care of everything. You took care of the records, the equipment, the mixer. Every once in a while, MC/rapper would have their own mic, maybe. But most of the time, you had everything. You had the mics, the headphones. You had to get everything there. You had to set it up. You had to be there on time because the party started at 9. You had to be there at 9. The rapper could be there whenever.
Right, whenever. Yeah, DJ's the first one to get there and the last one to leave all the time.
Right. So you were like the unofficial manager or the road manager, or you were the stage manager. You were doing everything. So back in the early days, you were the coordinator. So I just was a natural coordinator. I had been doing it. So you were always the person that had to, like, you couldn't have a DJ that was unorganized because, records would be getting left, needles wouldn't be there. We just wouldn't work. Right. So it just goes without saying. So I carried that into the record business with me. So I was always the person just taking care of stuff. So I think they gravitated to me like, why don't you manage us? And at the time, I didn't look at it like management. I just looked at it like helping my friends and coordinating stuff like I had always been doing. And so that's how the quote-unquote Untouchable was started. Now, as far as getting, let me go back a little bit. The first project that we did, we worked on the Big Time album. So if you look at the Big Time, that's the first appearance of the quote-unquote the Untouchables. You'll see a bunch of the records. You see the Me and Pete Rock, and it says produced by and it says the Untouchables. The first project that we did outside of Uptown was a remix. It was the Johnny Gill Rub You the Right Way remix. That's the first project that Untouchables did outside of Uptown. And it became a gold single, a #1 record, #1 R&B record, #2 pop record, which back in those days was like huge to have and the only reason it was #2 as a pop record and it wasn't #1 is because Mariah Carey Vision of Love was #1. And if anybody who remembers that time period, that's like Mariah Carey, that was her first album. That's what made her a superstar. She was #1, and we got to #2. That was Untouchables' first project. It was a monster hit for Motown. And it launched Untouchables into the rest of the industry outside of Uptown Records.
So you would say that the Untouchables may have been the first production team, would you say?
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
And in the Untouchables, in the Untouchables, you had people like Pete Rock, Dave Hall, Kenny Smooth, and an unknown Donnell Jones. Is that correct?
Yes. And the Untouchables was, and the way I got the concept of Untouchables was from the old Motown. It was kind of like the assembly line of producers and writers. But Untouchables was the first production team of the hip hop R&B generation. And the other thing too was a lot of labels would say to me, "You should get your B team. You should get your B team to work on it. You should get your B team." And I was like, "I don't want a B team. I want everybody to be the A team. I don't want a B team." And so through that, it was basic. And so the Hitman and Noontime and all those other companies, they all were modeled after Untouchables. Untouchables was first. And definitely Hitman, because Puff was at my house while I was developing. He lived with me in my house while I was building the whole Untouchables.
Wow. And the Untouchables, I mean, you produced remixes and songs for artists like TLC and LL and Mary J, Will Smith, and, I mean, just to name a few, even Run DMC, right?
Yep. Mariah Carey, Public Enemy, just all kinds of people, man. Luther Vandross, Jaheim, Tyrese. The In Living Color theme.
Okay, hold on. I want to get to that. Talk to me about Pete Rock and CL Smooth first.
Okay, so my first artist as Untouchables, the company, was Pete Rock and CL Smooth. But how Pete Rock and CL Smooth came together was, again, just like I'll Be Sure, I want to put my man Pete Rock in the game. So this is how it really went. I was like, Pete, find a rapper that you like and we gonna make it happen. It was like, so it was up to him. Whoever you get, and you tell me what you want to do, and then we gonna try and go get a deal. And he came back to me and with CL Smooth, and they had demos, and he said, yo, we're gonna be Pete Rock and CL Smooth, and that's how it came together. And it was all about me getting my friend a deal. And the funny thing is, when we did the Rub You the Right Way remix, this is the other thing. Rub You the Right Way remix, and people don't know this. When I say this, sometimes people look at me like I'm crazy, but I just say, oh, go back and look at the dates. Rub You the Right Way remix is the first remix that featured a rapper. It's not the first R&B song that ever had a rapper on it. There was I Feel For You, Shaka Khan. There was Just Coolin', Heavy D. There was different records. But it's the first remix that took a rapper that was not on the original record, remixed the record, and featured a rap on it. It's the first one. But it was done for a different reason than you do it now. The reason why people do remixes now, they'll be like, Cardi B is hot, and I got XYZ new R&B artist. I want to put Cardi B on the song so that it'll give some heat to the R&B artist. This was the total opposite.
Wow.
I was like, Johnny Gill is from New Edition. They just came off of, Can You Stand the Rain and all that. And plus they were New Edition from childhood to. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing Johnny Gill, and I'm trying my best to make this a hit. So I remember as we were doing it, I called up CL and said, yo, write a rap. I said, I want you to say your name in it. You need to say Johnny Gill in it. I said, the tempo is it's basically Big Daddy Kane raw tempo. That's the same, tempo.
Right.
That the sample is moving. He came to the studio. He laid down his rap. And I was doing that to market. I knew I was getting ready to put out Pete Rock and CL Smooth soon. So I showcased CL Smooth on the Johnny Gill remix to help market him to that 2 million people that I knew was going to hear that record.
Right. Johnny Gill was huge at the time.
Right. And we actually had a sticker. When we did the Pete Rock and CL Smooth EP, there was a sticker on the EP that said, Pete Rock and CL Smooth, and then it said, from the Johnny Gill Rub You the Right Way remix. It was marketing. That's why I did it. That ended up becoming the standard, like everybody. So I know, and I know Puff says we invented the remix, but really, for real, I really invented the remix.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I'm like, people can think I'm crazy. Go check the dates. Go check the record, check the dates. That's all I'll say.
That's incredible. And so CL Smooth was just, a young rapper from around the way in Mount Vernon. Is that right?
Yep. And then check this out. For people that know the industry, you know this. Johnny Gill, I remember Johnny Gill had a performance at Impact. And he said, just before Pete and CL came out, and he said CL Smooth could perform with him. And I got a lecture. I'm like, yo, we got to get CL a plane ticket. We got to get it. And I remember I gave CL one of our outfits from Heavy D the Boyz that was fly. And he went to the performance. And the whole reason was to, again, same thing, to get him in front of all the radio people.
Right.
To see CL Smooth. Because Johnny Gill's about to perform his big smash #1 hit. So, yo, you need to be on that stage at Impact so all the radio people can see you. So when we about to drop the Pete Rock and CL Smooth song, they know who CL Smooth is.
Wow. So you took the Pete Rock and CL Smooth demo to Elektra, and that's how you got them the deal? Is that how that happened?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, you single-handedly are responsible for Pete Rock and CL Smooth, which are legends for hip-hop and made a lot of hit records as well. Let's get back to something that you mentioned about the Untouchables. So you had mentioned the In Living Color theme music. Tell me how you ended up producing and writing the In Living Color theme music.
Okay. So I'm not sure exactly how the project came in. I think it might have been, Hev was friends with Eddie Murphy, and he knew they were about to do this In Living Color show, and they wanted us to do the theme for this new show, In Living Color. It's starring black comedians. It's going to be like a black version of Saturday Night Live. So my whole thing was I wanted to do a theme song that did like a record. Most of the time, theme songs, they kind of had that commercial jingle feel, it's done for the show. I was like, I want to do a record that would be a normal record and then just figure out how to squeeze it down into a theme song. So that's how the song came about, and that's the whole attitude we went in when we went in the studio. And I think we kind of nailed that, especially on the second version. But on the first version, there's parts of the song, the hook of the song, You Can Do What You Want to Do and Live in Color, it actually sounds like a bridge. And that was done on purpose because I was trying to make it sound like a song, like a record. But we didn't have a lot of time. I had to squeeze all these parts into a song that is not going to be a full song.
Right. Wow. Another thing, it goes down in history. And Living Color was an incredible television show. And you'll never forget the intro or the theme music. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So now we're in the 90s, clearly, right? And you're doing your thing from production to songwriting, DJing. You're delivering and giving us classic artists like P-Rock and CL Smooth. So around this time, you now became a VP at LaFace Records. Is that correct? How did that happen?
Okay, so right after I did Johnny Gill Rub You the Right Way remix, and it blew up, I got a call from LaFace. They wanted me to do a remix for TLC, new group they have. So this was a conversation. So they set up a call with me with L.A. Reid. Now, first of all, these are my heroes. My heroes as producers we were like kids, like in my opinion. We're the young dudes trying to do it. Even Teddy Riley and Marley, but they're my big brothers. But we're young. So to me, the adults in the room are Quincy Jones, the godfather that did Michael Jackson, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who did Janet Jackson, L.A. and Babyface, who was doing pretty much everybody else. They were like the mega producers.
Right.
They did Bobby Brown and all that stuff. So, I'm saying that to put this in perspective. I'm a fan of all of them. I'm trying to be a little minor piece of what you guys are. So, of course, L.A. Reid, I'm like, yeah. So I get on the phone, and he tells me, he says, we have this group, and we got this record, and I think the girls are superstars. But he said, we having a problem at urban radio. He said, we're fine at pop radio, but urban radio is giving us a hard time. They're saying the record is too abrasive, and they're resisting, playing it. So he's like, I really need a remix, see if I can, So I'm like, okay, so send me the record. So back then, there's no, this is before, there's no email, no YouTube, none of that. So they Delta Dash the video and the song. And for people that don't know the pain of that, Delta Dash back then was when you took something, they had a messenger come pick it up, or you dropped it off, and Delta, they bought it. And that could cost anywhere from $400 to $700 just for that one package.
Wow. Wow.
So he Delta Dashed me the video, put the video in, and you see TLC, the girls in their video, either in the morning, middle of the night. But I also could hear how I could hear the problem. It's abrasive, it's noisy. TLC, Ain't Too Proud to Beg. It's a noisy record. It's dope.
Right.
But it's noisy if you're into hip hop and you're into being rebellious, it's dope. But if you're like most of the R&B programmers across that time who were adult, urban guys.
Right.
That record sounded loud and obnoxious.
Yeah, to them it was a hip hop record, not an R&B record. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So I hear it and I say, okay. I said, I know what to do. And also it's for one of my heroes. So I go in the studio and I make the Untouchables, the smoothed out mix. And basically what I did was I converted the record I made it sound more musical, put strings in it, chords. I took an ad lib from the end of the song, put it in the hook, made it like a singing hook, all this stuff. And back then, another thing, it was cost prohibitive to have an artist sing the record over. It would cost too much. So you had to take whatever was on the track and rearrange it. You couldn't say, come in and just re-sing. You had to make it in tune, make it in key. You had to kind of do a whole reconstructive surgery of the song. So did that, sent them the song. They loved it. They called me. They were like, it was hot. Became a gold single. Became a #1 R&B record. #1 at radio. Fixed the problem. So at that point, I became the problem fixer because I had fixed the Johnny Gill, fixed the TLC. So now Untouchables is on its way as, if you want to get fixed, you need to call Eddie Evans. Your record needs some help, you call the Untouchables, they're going to fix it for you. Our relationship with L.A. Reid. So fast forward the next album, the Crazy Sexy Cool. You got Creep. I get another call from L.A. and he says, man, he says, I got this problem. He says, I got all these remixes for Creep, but it's not what I'm looking for. I said, well, send me the mixes and let me hear what's going on. So he sends me, he overnights me. At that point, it's like FedEx or something. I think he overnights me a DAT with all the mixes. So no exaggeration, there's 7 mixes on there. I'm not going to name you the names of all the people that did mixes, but all I'm going to say is everybody did mixes on that song except Teddy Riley. So I'm not going to put the people's name out there because of what happened. But when I heard the mixes, I listened to it and I was like, man, all these mixes is drums. Ain't no music. It's like they literally, all of them are like beat type of mixes. I don't know why. Maybe it was because people didn't really have keyboard players. Maybe they didn't play music. Maybe I don't know what it was for. Whatever reason. And I called LA and I said, I know what the problem is. I said, I'm a fix. Now, this is the thing. This is why it's critical. He told me, he said, man, we spent he's like, we ain't got no more money in the budget. We spent like $75,000. And back then, $75,000 was like a ridiculous amount to spend. Not even on the record, it's on the remixes. Right. And I can see why they already had 5 people do it. So they paid the 5 people first half, everybody.
Yeah.
So I told LA, I said, yo, again, being a fan, and Untouchables being hot, and I'm doing good. I'm not hurting for no money. I'm like, well, just pay for the studio time. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to fix it for you. So went in there, did the Creep remix. And I used like the DOS effects and harder, Nobody Beats the Biz. And it was still hip-hop, but it had a groove and it was musical. And I fixed it for him. He called me like, yo, you nailed it, whatever. And he was so that I fixed it. He said, yo. And so then a few days later after that, he calls me and says, hey, remember that A&R thing that we was talking about a little while back? He's like, man, we should make that happen. And I'm like, all right. Figure it out.
Wow, so you ended up being A&R of LaFace Records, and I'm sure you ended up working with Usher, Outkast, Tony Braxton, and the whole roster, right?
Yeah, everybody. My first day on the job as Vice President A&R was the day we signed Goody Mob. That was my first meeting. We took Goody Mob to lunch, and we signed Goody Mob. So it was CeeLo, get all of them. My comment was, and I'd be proud to say that, like, yo, my first meeting at LaFace, we signed Goody Mob. Because I know that's like legacy, the Dungeon Family, the Basement, just Outkast, Goody Mob, CeeLo. I feel good to be able to just even be like, yo, I was there and I was part of it.
Right, absolutely. Again, another notch in your historical belt. You know what I mean? So let's move forward a little bit. Talk to me about your first album, DJEDDIEF and the Untouchables.
Oh man, so this is the funny thing. All right, DJEDDIEF and Untouchables. First of all, DJEDDIEF and Untouchables, the title track is
it's called Let's Get It On. Okay.
Yeah, it's the only record with Biggie and Pop on the same record. It's not a remix. It's not put together after the fact. They both were on the same record. Now, little did I know, this is before any East-West Coast beef. This is before they both passed and before have passed. This is before any of that. That's one thing about the album. The funny thing about the album, a lot of times people look at the artist, look at the album, and they say, man, what happened? Like, why this was like a sleeper? Why did this album blow up? So, for all the people that always wonder what happened to the DJEDDIEF and Untouchables album and why didn't it blow up, the reason it didn't blow up is because Arista and LaFace got in a fight with Motown over the clearances. And so they had just had the Whitney Houston with the Bodyguard #1 for 13 weeks. And then behind it came Boyz II Men, End of the Road or whatever it was. And End of the Road was produced by Ellie and Babyface, and I want to say it was on one of the soundtracks on Arista, but Motown took it as a single and blew it up, and there was some beef behind that, the singles rights and all that. So they were beefing, and it affected. They were like, they wouldn't give the singles rights, so Motown could not promote the records as singles, and Motown didn't want to give the rights to Arista because they were beefing about what had just happened between Whitney Houston single and Boyz II Men.
Wow. So that particular album came out on Motown Records, correct?
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Which, let me just drop something real quick. When I look at this, again, I look at this all in retrospect. And sometimes, man, I just feel grateful about the music and just having been with great people in music. And I say, man, I was a vice president of A&R at LaFace, worked with all these historic groups with LA and Babyface. I was an artist on Uptown Records, but then I also was an executive vice president of A&R at Motown. But then I was also a hit producer for Motown. And I was actually a Motown artist because DJEDDIEF and Untouchables, my album was on Motown. So I'm like, and when I look back, I say, man, like, you know, for just a kid that's a fan of music and a fan of hip hop, I say, man, I would have never thought that I would be like a Motown artist, a producer for Motown, and be an executive at Motown.
And all of that, the Motown stint, all that happened around the same time you putting out your album and then becoming an A&R there?
That was like between 91 and 98. I was a producer early on doing the Johnny Gill and all of that stuff. And then I was an artist with my album, the DJEDDIEF and Untouchables album. And I have the promo picture with me as like a Motown artist, which I just think is cool. This before it was Motown Universal and all that stuff. It was still Motown just by itself. So I think that's cool. I have like I have an artist publicity photo when I was an artist on Motown. And then I was executive vice president at A&R. So I just not anything in terms of like, bragging or anything. It's more of just feeling grateful when I look at it. I say, wow, God really like blessed, and I'm appreciative of those type of just having those type of life experiences.
Well, absolutely, because while you were A&R at LaFace, like you said, you were there when the signing of Goody Mob came and Outkast was just blowing up, and TLC was on top of the world, and a lot of great things were happening that you were a part of. But also at Motown, you worked with Latifah, Stevie Wonder, the Temptations, Boyz II Men, 98 Degrees, 702, and I believe you signed Mario Winans. Is that right?
Yep, I did sign. Before he signed the Bad Boy, I signed Mario Winans. So check this out, man.
By the way, it's incredible. And you also were responsible for Donnell Jones as an artist, correct? But go on. My apologies. Go ahead.
No. Man, so check this out. When I was at Motown, we put out a single on the Temptations. And the Temptations they had 2 or 3 albums that were certified gold while we were there because of the single that we released. Check this out. That gave me chills when I found out. It was the first time where Otis from the Temptations signed to me and said to DJEDDIEF, they say, thanks for always looking out for the Temps. And I'm like, stuff like that, man. That's why I do this, man. Everything else is, the music and the money, but, you can't. The feeling of, like, man, Otis from the Temptations wrote me a note on a poster and said, thanks for always looking out for us. And the reason why he said that is because when I was executive vice president, we had a lot of stuff going on there. But these are the pioneers. These are legacy acts. Like, they paved the way for us. So Louis Tillman, my man Louis Tillman, was their actual day-to-day A&R. But whenever he came with something with attempts, it was like, yo, that's going through. We're going to make sure, like, whatever they need, whatever money, whatever it is, we have to move something around, we're going to make it happen. And that's why Louis had told him, yo, DJEDDIEF told me, whatever we need for the temps, we're going to make that happen. So ultimately, when they had that success and it paid off and they went gold, he wrote me that note because Louis had told them, yo, Eddie, like, anything y'all need, he's going to make it happen.
Wow, that's incredible.
And so that's like special to me. The other thing is I got to do Stevie Wonder's Greatest Hits album. And there was a dilemma because they had been trying to get Stevie Wonder to deliver his album for 2 years before I ever got there. And for whatever reason, they were like, Stevie's not going to deliver it. It's hard. He's difficult. It's hard to work with him. And I don't think it meant difficult like he's mean or anything. They just meant difficult, like, I guess, from a music creative perspective. So being a music person myself, I felt like they needed to put Stevie Wonder's album out because they needed it for quote-unquote billing at the company. But I was like, Stevie Wonder's like a national treasure. You can't treat him like hey, man, let's just get these donuts ready and roll it out. I'm like, you can't do that with Stevie Wonder? If you need to put the record out, but it better be consistent with a certain quality or whatever. So when I knew I was supposed to talk to Stevie about his album, I basically ordered his whole catalog of all his songs, everything, whatever 80 songs had ever come out, and I studied all his songs.
Wow.
And so when I had the conversation with him, it wasn't when's the record gonna come out? How close do you think you are? It was a total creative. I think we should use these records. We should sequence them this way. I had put it all on mini disc. And for anybody that knows how mini disc works, mini disc, you could rearrange the sequence on the fly. You could move songs around.
Right.
So I used to use that to test my album. Like if I wanted to do a sequence, because you could go to a song and then rewind some and see how does it sound when this song ends and goes to the next song. So we had that whole conversation. And so I'm in my office with the album, and I'm on the phone with Stevie Wonder, and he got his, Stevie Wonder studio, synclavier, all his stuff, and he has his stuff all loaded in. And we're listening to songs, and we're literally going through, how do you like when this song ends and goes into this song? He's like, okay, hold on a second. He's like, pulls it up and puts them together and then has one song and then he's like, okay, yeah, I like that. That's the conversation that we had on his whole greatest hits. So when I gave him the sequence, he loved everything about the sequence. I think he made one change. There was one thing he changed, and then he delivered the album. And I remember when I told him, I said, Stevie just delivered the album. I think they gave me like a ovation. No, they didn't give me no bonus, but they gave me like a executive, hand clap.
Oh, okay.
But things like that. I'm like, man, how I'm like, man, I work with Stevie Wonder. I work with the Temptations.
It's incredible.
Like, I'm like, besides, and I'm a diehard, hip hop, man. Grandmaster Flash, man, these guys, I love these guys.
Yeah, but it's Stevie Wonder and the Temptations. But you did do some things with Run DMC, correct?
Yes, same thing, man. I grew up with Run DMC on my wall. So obviously when I met Run, same thing with them. I did their greatest hits album, and I actually got to do some things that nobody had ever done. I looked at a lot of their now all the music is out because it's all digital, it's all up everywhere. But back then, I had grown up on Together Forever and Here We Go, those all the Run DMC records, everybody knew that. But there was some special ones that was only like, they had never appeared greatest hits record. So I made sure that those songs got onto the greatest hits record because I was like, these are songs that people want to hear. If you're a true Run DMC fan, they're not out there anywhere. They were only on vinyl. They were like on the B side. They're not on any CDs. They weren't, because they weren't on albums, some of them. So I made sure those got on there, and then I became friends with Run and D and RPJ. Again, man, these guys are idols, man. I idolized all these guys. It was cool to just become, friends with them after the fact. I'm still a fan, man.
Absolutely.
I do all this stuff, but I'm still a fan of all these guys, man. When I see these guys, I'm just happy to just know them and be, somebody that, I can actually have them as friends and have their numbers and text them and because at the end of the day, man, I'm still just a guy that loves music and loves hip hop.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about your career here, before we get out of here. It looks like you've done everything at this point, right? And I'm sure all of those things kept you busy through the 80s and 90s and the 2000s and on. But let's talk about a little bit of TV and film scoring. I know we talked about In Living Color earlier in the interview, but talk to me a little bit about, because I understand that you've worked with, BET, McDonald's, and Jeep and Chrysler, and a lot of corporate entities. Talk to me a little bit about your TV and film scoring.
So, and it's funny, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people are like, where's DJEDDIEF and what's he been doing? And I ain't heard from him in 10 years. And the funny thing is, man, I've been doing a lot of stuff, but I just haven't been talking. I haven't been telling people. I've been posting on social media. So a lot of the advertising campaigns and music for television and music for TV ads, I've been doing a lot of that stuff. There was a campaign for BET back maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 to 10 years ago. And I call it the We Got You campaign. It was like, we got laughs, we got jokes, we got comedians, we got this. And, it was like, and there was like Jamie Foxx and Taraji, Mary J. Blige. And I did all the music for that campaign. And a lot of these shows, a lot of their, Nellyville, The Game, the DNC, RNC conventions, a lot of that stuff, Rip the Runway. I was doing music for all those ad campaigns.
Wow.
And one of the reasons I never said anything was because this was at the time when the music business was getting kind of weird. It was really like people were trying to figure out, music wasn't really selling, and people were trying to figure out how they're going to, do stuff, make money, making music. So I said, if I go on my social media and I go, check this out, I just did the new commercial for Rip the Runway, and I put it on my Facebook, all that's going to happen is everybody I know that does music is going to flood me. They're going to call them tomorrow and go, yo, I got tracks. They're going to get like 150 phone calls. So I never said anything. I just let people think that I wasn't doing anything. But a lot of this music and commercials and stuff they were watching, I had done the Soul Train Awards. There's a Soul Train Awards with like Tony Rock and Ced the Entertainer. And they're kind of like dancing in the beginning, and it has this music that kind of like, it sounds sort of like A-Marie. Like I did that music. I had done all this stuff. I just didn't tell anybody I was doing it. Then I was doing stuff for CNBC and a lot of their shows, and then some news shows, a lot of different networks, CNBC, VH1, MTV, BET, and then I started doing some movie scoring. I also did scoring for documentary for the making of Barton Atlanta. A lot of stuff, man. I've just been doing all kinds of stuff that I haven't been talking about.
Again, it's incredible, and obviously that keeps you busy to this day. But let me ask you this question. I mean, it looks like you've worked from an artist standpoint. I know we're talking about TV and film now and movies, but from an artist standpoint, it looks like you've worked with a little bit of everybody. Not to mention, again, the legendary things you did with Heavy D and P-Rock and C.O. Smooth, and having one of the first collaborations, or maybe the only, with having Tupac and Biggie on the record with Heavy D and Grand Poobah, right, for your particular album. Is there any artist in your history that you did not get a chance to work with that you really wanted to?
Work with? Probably Michael Jackson. I met Michael Jackson, and I talked to him about some stuff, but I never worked with him musically.
Wow. Well, I know Michael Jackson and Heavy D worked together in the past.
Yes, and I actually missed that because I was back doing the remixes for somebody for me. This is back in the days where you had to travel. You had to be, there's no Pro Tools, there's no files you can send. It's like you got to take the reels, and doing a mix, you got to be there.
Right. Wow. So Michael Jackson is the one artist that you didn't get a chance to work with that you would have liked to have.
Yes.
So what is EDDIEF working on currently? What are you working on now?
I just finished a movie score that was a film that was directed by Terry Vaughn, and it's actually coming out on BT. It's starring Taronda Jones, who plays Cookie's assistant on Empire, and Wendy Raquel Robinson is in it, and then Andre Fuller from The Game. It's a movie called Hip Hop Holiday, and that's actually coming this holiday season. It's actually coming, I think, November 30th. I did that. I did the score for that, and I also produced music. And then one of the lead singles that's coming from that. And then I'm just working on some other stuff that's going to be coming immediately right after that. I don't want to fully let it out the bag yet, but I will say that there's going to be a lot more music coming at the end of this year going into 2020.
Great, and we look forward to it. So before we get out of here, can you give me one EDDIEF hip-hop story from your past? Just one incredible memory, incredible story that people might not know. Okay,
well, so this is funny. I have a few of these stories, though, but I'm going to give you one. So we're in, I don't know if you remember if it's North Carolina, South Carolina. So we're getting ready to do a show. We're setting up for the show. And I'm there doing the sound check. And there's some guys that come. And, this would happen a lot. Guys are at the sound check. So I'm messing with the SV12, and there's this guy, he's asking me about the SV12, and I'm like, and so I'm telling him, yeah, man, you can do this, and here's this, and how much it costs, and all the stuff you can do with it, and how it's set up. And I basically give him a whole rundown on the SV12 and SV1200. It's two guys, and they leave. I didn't know this, but they end up going and purchasing the SV1200 and, and using it to make songs and make beats and whatever. So years later, fast forward 2 years later, maybe 3 years later, I'm in New York in Uptown and, hanging out and we're doing all this stuff. So I'm talking to, a few of the, people, other groups, other artists, stuff like that. So talking to one person in particular, he's like, yo, man, he's like, you don't even remember this. He's like, yo, I remember y'all came to do a show, and I came to the show, and I was asking you about the stuff, and you told me all the stuff I should get and what I should buy and how to set it up, and went and got the machine, and yo, that's the machine I got right now. And the funny thing is that person was Devontae and KC had just come. They weren't Jodeci yet. They were just two guys. It was just Devontae and KC had came to one of our shows and was asking me about equipment. And so I had talked to him 2-3 years prior and basically gave him the whole rundown on the SP1200 and what he should get and how he should set it up and all that stuff. And he told me that story.
Wow. So you were the inspiration, and you helped Devontae start his production career, basically, right?
Yes.
You were on the road with Heavy D and the Boyz at that time?
Yep. I was on the road. It was a Heavy D and the Boyz show.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. That's
and this was like this was before the show. This was just like sound check or setup or something.
And what's interesting is Jodeci ends up getting signed to Uptown, which is the same label that you were on at the time.
Yep. I want to say one thing about that, too. This is the funny thing about that. And I believe this. You never know, like, because ultimately, me just doing what I do, me helping them, it ended up really helping me and helping us and helping all of us because it made Uptown a stronger label because Jodeci being on Uptown helped, at the end of the day, it just helped us all be a stronger team. I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because I didn't know. And it's how you put something in the universe, you put an energy, and then it comes back to you, and you don't even know it came back to you.
Right, absolutely. And I bet you that show was probably somewhere around the Carolinas. I bet.
Yes. Yep, it was. And I don't know. Wherever they're from, that's where it was.
Yeah, they're from, I believe it's Charlotte, North Carolina, but, somewhere in the Carolinas. And wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing story. Great history. So I know, back in the day, you were making records with the 909, and you had just mentioned the SP1200. So as a producer, what's your favorite piece of equipment? What was your favorite piece of equipment to use?
Back then, it was the MPC. It went in phases. It was first the SP12 and 1200, then the MPC 60 and MPC 3000. But I mean, man, I'm an equipment DJ guy that ran and created and developed a production company. So just imagine how much equipment that I touched, man. I just love, it's that, as a DJ, man, it's that feeling of, it's nothing like unpacking a fresh set of turntables in a mixer. It's just something about it that it never gets old,
Absolutely.
So imagine that keyboard, drum machine. It's that something new. Something, a chance for some new sound, something that might add. And sometimes, sometimes it's that one sound that you got from that one thing that makes a whole difference, becomes like sound. That's your sound,
Right. Well, I ask you that because, I'm a DJ myself and, I totally agree. But, you had eras where there was drum machines and then here come the samplers. And then, like when you talk about the SP1200 and the MPCs, these are workstations that you could sample and do everything on. Prior to that, it was drum machines. So I'm saying all that to say is in the beginning of the interview, you called yourself a cool nerd. And I believe that paid off for you in the long run because you were always technologically savvy, right? I know some of the things that you do now from a technical standpoint, maybe, IT and, I know a lot of people don't know. And you had mentioned it to me that some of the other things that you do, with computers and setting up, people's whole setup, right?
Yep. I'm going to have some information that nobody knows this just happened. Because you started talking about drum machines. I said, just throw it on out there. So check this out. I'm a fan of the culture. So I just got, and this is crazy. I didn't tell Flash yet. I didn't even call him and let him know because I'm going to call him and let him know. And hopefully he doesn't hear this before I let him know. I found brand new, never opened, and I just got it like 2 weeks ago. Brand new, never opened. The original beatbox. The beatbox that's used on, the Bozo Mecco, Flash It to the Beat?
Yes.
Just listen to this. I wonder the one you got to play by hand, the old one from the 60s or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I just got that drum machine. It's brand new in the box. Never been used. Only been used to open it to make sure that it wasn't like rotted out or something. But I just found It's like, and to me, that's like, it's a hip hop classic piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
I just got that. I was watching him talk about it, and he said, man, this thing is from the 60s. I think the Beatles would like you used it on their album or something. And I found one brand new, and I was like, I got it. I'm in this whole classic hip hop culture thing now. So I just like, I'm kind of retroing back to all that stuff that we used, back in the early beginning.
Absolutely. So you're collecting old drum machines and old paraphernalia and everything, yes?
Yep.
So I'm going to assume that you own all those old DMXs and the Lynn drums and all of those drum machines, right? The 909s and all of that?
I don't. I got rid of that stuff, but I was thinking about getting a DX, but I didn't get all the drum. The machines I do have the machines that we started with, like all the In Living Color and all the stuff where we started New Jack Swing and all those machines. I have all those machines. All those like orchestra hits and all this stuff. I have the stuff that created a sound that right now people will try and copy it, but if you don't really know where the original sounds came from, you could you have to kind of be in the Teddy, you have to be right there to know like this is what really was used on Keith Sweat I Wanna. Like this is the machine. This is what
right.
we used.
Absolutely.
So I have all those machines. Because when Bruno Mars came out with Finesse, I said, man, I'm going to go back and get all those. So I went and got the actual original machines, everything that I use for like Living Color and all that stuff. So I have all that stuff.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, and all those pieces of history are worth a lot of money now. No question about it.
I did see like a 909, man. A 909, which used to go for like $500. I just saw one on eBay. It was $7,000.
Yeah.
$7,000.
Yeah, so if you end up with all of them, hold on to them because it's worth a lot of money. So, Eddie F., how can our listeners continue to follow you?
They should follow me, my social media, at DJEDDIEF. I'm at DJEDDIEF on everything. DJEDDIEF. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, even Facebook /DJEDDIEF. Everywhere DJEDDIEF, you'll find me.
Very nice, very nice. Well, Eddie F., I want to thank you for allowing me to interview you for Vinyl Esquire. It's been a pleasure to dig deep into your history because it's a long one. You're now listening to Vinyl Esquire, and this is the legendary DJ Eddie F.
Hello world, I want to welcome you to Vinyl Esquire, the podcast